Vader and Kenobi had their epic duel on the Death Star, and Darth Vader's offense was slowing down the old Kenobi. But then Vader had chopped the hands of Kenobi off and stood in front of him. Luke saw this. He'd immediately yell his master's name. Catching Vader's attention, Vader would force pull him to his hand. He sensed this was the son of Anakin Skywalker. He would release him just to put him to sleep, and then he would look back to Obi-Wan Kenobi.
You yet have failed again, Obi-Wan. You failed to kill Anakin Skywalker, and you have failed to keep the boy safe. It is a pity you won't be able to see the boy rule the galaxy by my side. And now your time has come.
Kenobi was pulled to Vader's hand, and then Vader's blade went into his stomach. 15 years later, Luke had been trained by Vader. He would also become Vader's right-hand man. He would be sent on missions to kill Jedi. Luke would basically be as powerful as Starkiller. It would be time for Luke to face his final test, and that final test would be to beat his father. Lord Vader waited for his son as he sat in front of the ship, waiting. Luke walked into the room after the request of his father. Vader would turn around to meet his son.
It is time for your final test, until we kill Sidious. The test is for you to defeat me in lightsaber combat.
Vader sensed that Luke had conflict in him to fight his father.
Yes, my son. I am very sure of this.
Vader ignited his blade and went to strike Luke. His blade would be meted by Luke's. Luke would break off of Vader's offense, and he'd think of a way to beat his father. Luke would stab his lightsaber into the ground, and then he would drag it through and attack Vader's legs. Then, while Vader was distracted, he would force push him with all his might, sending Vader into the window. Luke smiled as he held his father up to the window with the Force. Luke would release his father and would walk up to him. Luke and Vader knew it was time to attack Sidious, but Luke wanted to do one more thing. Luke would use the Force to put his father to sleep. A few days later, Darth Vader would wake up. He was about to talk before he was cut off. He didn't hear his breathing. He would look down at his body to see that he didn't even have a suit on. He was in the body of Anakin Skywalker. He would jump out of his bed and he'd look into a mirror, seeing himself looking right back at him. He'd look around thinking this was a dream, but then his son would pop out from the corner. Vader would walk to his son, but then he'd ignite his lightsaber and he'd twist it around and he'd deflect bullets into stormtroopers. He would turn around and he'd throw his lightsaber into the stormtroopers, killing them one by one. In a second, they all were dead, lifeless bodies on the ground. He would turn to his son, and then he'd leave the room in anger that the Empire has now turned against him. Darth Vader would go into his ship and he'd fly to the Death Star. As soon as he got into the Death Star, blasted fires were shot towards him, but simply dissolved into nothing. As soon as he entered the throne room, he'd instantly force pull Darth Sidious towards him. As Anakin looked down towards Palpatine, he would think on how he would kill him. He realized that if he did kill him, Sidious would most likely try to overtake his body. Then, without thinking, Anakin would ignite his blade and cut Palpatine in half. He would go sit down on Palpatine's chair, knowing the Death Star would blow up soon. Vader, no, Anakin now, smiled, knowing he'd die, peacefully, knowing he wasn't in pain anymore. The Death Star would explode, with Anakin on it. He would die. He died knowing he had brought balance to the Force, and that was what he always had wanted to do. After Anakin looked into the mirror and saw his face, he realized the true amount of crime he has done. He would also let himself die on the Death Star so Sidious couldn't take over his body and inflict so much more pain than he already had. Luke would turn back to the light after seeing his father's Force ghost and telling him the story of what had happened. He would build his own Jedi Order, like he had did in canon. He would make it so it was better than the old order with not so strict rules. And that's the end for this What If. Make sure to like and subscribe and come back in the next What If.